This price point is the first place where our tastes start to divide us a little bit, and you can actually get your choice on the style of sailboat that you want. We've covered $20,000 sailboats, and we found that all we could really get were, let's call them racer cruisers, things like the CNC 34 or the Islander 36. For $30,000, we got a buttload of sort of better racer cruisers like that Newport 41 we looked at, or the Cal 39. But we also got our first taste at $30,000 of the light duty cruising boats like the Endeavour or the CS. And we also managed to piss off the Alberg Association. Sorry guys. For 20 or 30 grand, we really weren't spoiled for options though. But the next price point is where things get interesting, and our opinions really will start to vary, I promise. This week on Everything You Need to Know, by huge demand, we're talking about the $40,000 sailboat. If you're out here right now trying to spend $40,000 hard-earned dollars on a sailboat, first off, congratulations. Not many of us have 40 grand laying around right now, and the boating market finally seems to be heading back toward reality. It's been so outrageous for so long. It really might actually be a good time to start shopping right now. At 40 grand, you really have to make a decision. And the way I see it, it's going to go one of three ways. You either want to stick with the racer cruiser because it's sort of the best of all worlds, while kind of being the master at none, or you want to go down the road of a full-on cruising boat with a full keel and lots of space, things that go upwind like a U-Haul truck. Or, and this will be the biggest divide, at 40 grand we start to see the first appearance of the production boat. And for those of you who don't know, a production boat is not really a factual term. It's sort of just a boat known to most of the sailing world as the newer, high production run sailboats like Beneteau or Jeanneau and Hunter, to name a few. They often have a whiter, plasticier look to them. The interiors are usually less teak and more IKEA. And because of the high production numbers, the rumor is the build quality is less than that of an old racer cruiser that we all grew up with. Now, some people hate these boats, and some people love them. And for the crowd that's a little bit older than me, this is likely what you've been waiting for, because at 40 grand, this is the first time you'll be able to get a sugar scoop and a walk-through transom, and for many, that is a very, very big deal. But before we go too far, a big shout out. Lady K Sailing is brought to you by patrons, and you guys really do make this whole channel possible. I can't appreciate you enough. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do this stuff. A couple of bucks an episode really does go a long way. It's awesome. It does. I live in the country, for example, so uploading videos would take like 2 days on the internet that's available here, so I had to get Starlink, which is very pricey. And the camera gear and a high-end computer and lighting and microphones, it's endless. So a huge thank you to all the patrons out there, and a shout out to this week's newest patrons, Andrew, Kevin, and Iris. Thank you guys so honestly very much. In the $40,000 market, the first thing you're going to notice is a ton of these sort of one-off boats, low production numbers. Like, look at the Schooner. What a head turner. Or how about a big pilot house? So this thing is like the Dodge conversion van of sailboats. And if you want this sort of thing, this one's pretty nice. Next up is one of Bruce Roberts' babies. And by baby, I mean a 45-foot, full keel, 30,000 pound monster. I mentioned one of your options at 40 grand is a full-on cruising boat, and this is a great example. But make no mistake, this is a full-on ocean-going cruiser that can handle anything, and it's no slouch in the racing department. This catch happens to be in Mexico, but for a boat like this, it is aging, but the owner says it needs very little in the TLC, and the engine was just rebuilt 100 hours ago. Interior space is colossal, and the electronics seem to be well appointed. For 40 grand, if world cruising is your plan, I would dare you to find something more appropriate and more capable than this boat. This is truly a great example of what this price point will get you for a well-appointed cruising boat. At 40 grand, we still turn up a lot of older boats Choi Lees and things like that, and they may be tempting. Things like this Choi Lee Clipper, or this gorgeous, mind you, late 50s Hinckley 42-foot yawl, and this older Seawolf. But these are the older boats a lot of people won't have the time or money to invest in. If you're of the racer cruiser persuasion, the 40 grand mark has a lot to offer you as well. You can have any racer cruiser you want out here as long as it's a CNC 40. Now, I joke, but seriously, here's a white one. Here's one with a laminate mainsail. Here's one with no mainsail. And here's a blue one if you're feeling sad. You kind of get my point? We see so many of these CNC 40s, and for good reason. It's a very successful design and a very good boat for a racer cruiser. We'll be looking probably for a Mark II at 40 grand, which is good. It's another Robert Ball design, coming in at 17,000 pounds, and the centerboard version has a drop keel with up to 8.5 feet. Now, make no mistake, this may be a roomy and comfortable 40-footer that you could very easily live on if you wanted to, but with a PHRF rating of 93, this thing is a rocket ship. It is meant to go fast. It wants to go fast. And all the other 40-something footers are going to spend a lot of time looking at the back end of this boat. All that go fast doesn't mean you can't live on it, though, and live with it. You get a decent interior and enough room to stay comfortable on your journeys. Can you do a better interior for 40 grand? Yeah, of course you can. But if you want a racer cruiser, it'd be very hard to find a better option than this boat. And if you decide to buy a CNC 40 with your 40 grand, I don't imagine anyone would hold it against you. At least not until you harden up the sails, point up, and blow everybody else's doors off on your way to the next anchorage. Now, we talk about CNC and we talk about 40 grand, and landfall owners will kill me if I don't mention the landfall. If the CNC 40 is too racer for you, or you need a little bit more cruiser in your racer cruiser, then the landfall 38 is the answer, and there are some for sale at this price point. The landfall gives you more space, a more refined interior, doorways on the deck where you would have found winches on the racier version, a bigger galley, and a shorter keel with more focus on comfort than putting the rail under the water. This 38-foot cruiser really is something to look for in the 40 grand price point. I get a lot of requests for help with sailboats, buying sailboats, evaluating sailboats, to the point where I should probably be a yacht broker or something. But one of the biggest ones is from folks that are a bit older than me who want a boat that they can easily handle and live with comfortably. And with those requests, the highest on the list always seems to be the walk-through transom onto a sugar scoop with a boarding ladder. And I get it. I can't hate on it. I'd love to have one too. Climbing over the stern rail, especially with groceries or water jugs, it sucks, and I cannot imagine still doing it when I'm in my 60s. The good news for those folks is 40 grand is where you can start to see and get into something like that, but it's going to be a production style boat. And here's one. We'll start with Bavaria, an older production boat, but nonetheless we get that production boat feel. Here's a great example of what I mean by easy to own production boats. At only 32 feet, it's small for 40 grand, but it's a much newer and easier to own boat. On this kind of boat, we're going to get our walk-through transom sugar scoop with the boarding ladder. We also get tons of deck-level port lights for an open and airy cabin, a Dodger, a Bimini, a stack pack to make the mainsail easier to handle. That kind of stuff is important. A big, comfy, round cockpit to hang out in, and even an aft cabin. On a 32-footer, you may hate on production boats, but if you need the ease of livability, it's hard to beat them. While the pictures this broker took are kind of terrible, the interior is nicely appointed on this boat. Comes with this cupboard, for example, which is a really nice cupboard, and obviously the fridge opens. And we can certainly not talk about production boats for the $40,000 mark without Beneteau making an appearance. This, for example, is at a reasonably tidy 31-footer with, yes, the sugar scoop that you wanted. A bright and fresh interior that you can enjoy without feeling like you're in a cave, and racer cruisers, you know what I'm talking about. You even get doors to the head and the aft cabin, which, I mean, there are boats with doors and there are boats without doors. If you know, you know. Honestly, the only gripe I have with this Beneteau is the length. For 40 grand, I want a bit more boat. And if you're single-handed or just using it to weekend on, I mean, this one is a really nice option. It's just nice as a 31-foot boat. Very nice interior, would be very easy to live with. So if 31 feet is not enough, Tim, here's a 32. Also a Beneteau. Full enclosure this time, and yes, we get the sugar scoop. Nicely laid out, lots of space, nice livable interior space, a big aft cabin, just an all-around nice boat. Honestly, I hope nobody looking at the 31 sees this 32, because the 31 would probably be a mistake. 31 and 32 too small? Fine, here's a 34. Hunter this time, and it is a B&R rigged Hunter, which, you know, hate it or love it. You want space in your sailboat? This is space. I've lived in apartments smaller than this thing. Heck, I've lived in apartments that are not nearly as nice as this thing. You get a very nice interior with a huge salon instead of a V-berth. You get a massive head, a decent galley, and a monster of an aft cabin to sleep in. If ease of use is what you want, just buy this thing. Job done. She's 35 grand and she's in great shape. If you're a single dude or maybe a couple with no kids, it's hard to argue with this. You don't need a V-berth anyway. This episode is getting a bit long, so let me leave you with this. If you want to spend 40 grand, you are going to have to decide what you want and move forward from there. The older racer cruiser is a great option if speed and club racing will be a part of your life. The long-term full keel cruiser if you're going to go traveling, or the newer production boat if you value ease of use. Hey guys, don't forget I made a brand new YouTube channel, and this week we are playing a game called Raft, where we actually get to build a sailboat. If you want to check it out, click the link at the top, or I'll leave it right at the top of the description for the new channel. And don't forget to subscribe. It really needs subscribers right now. Thanks so much. 40 grand really is where the paths start to branch off, and you have some decisions to make. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe. If you want to see more, please consider becoming a patron. I will see you guys next week.